Welcome, it's the RC Renegade here. Today we're talking all about RC cars and how they work. So the basics of how a remote control car works is obviously first we have our car, and then we have our radio transmitter, which sends a signal from the transmitter to the car. Now on your transmitter you have two basic functions, which is for steering and for your throttle input. And those signals are transferred to the car. Now the car itself has an outer shell that is held on by 3 pins. On this car, just 3 cotter pins. We'll remove those now, and I'll show you what's underneath and how everything works. So we can remove the shell. You can see the shell itself underneath just has like a gray just base coat of paint. The car itself, the basic components, you have our battery here, which powers the car. You have your receiver, your servo, an ESC, your gears, and your motor. And we'll go over those components in greater detail now. So first of all, the battery. The battery supplies power to the rest of the electronics on the car. The batteries that I run on this car are HRB 6000 mAh 14.8 volt li-poly batteries. They work very well. The connections on this car is just your basic RC car connections. It is an EC5 power connection, and then this connector right here is just used when you charge the battery itself. So moving from the battery, this car itself is built to, you could run 2 batteries together. So this connector here is if you want to hook up a second battery, but also this pulls out and releases. And the reason having a removable plug is so helpful is because if there was a fire and I was running this car and there was a fire, I could remove the body and quickly pull that plug, which will shut the power off to the rest of the car. So in the event of emergency, this plug right here could definitely come in handy. And when it runs, I have it like this so that I can remove the body and then boom, it's right here. It's easily accessible and you can get to that relatively quickly. Now we have our battery here. Next we have our receiver, and the antenna for the receiver is right here, and that receives the signal from the transmitter to the receiver, and it has a waterproof cover that the receiver is in, and you can see the red seal is the waterproof seal around the receiver. And our receiver sits in here, and it's covered by some wires at the moment, but there are 4 channels on your RC car receiver. And the first 2 channels, channels 1 and 2, are for the servo, or are for the throttle and the steering inputs. And then channels 3 and 4 are for just auxiliary channels. So if you want to run lights on your RC car, or say like a winch or an extra servo to move something on the car, then you can do that. You know, channel 3 and 4 are for whatever you would like, but channels 1 and 2 typically are for your throttle and your steering. Now this car also has a servo. So a servo is what changes the signals for steering into motion. So your receiver receives input from the transmitter to turn, and then that sends power over to your servo, and when you turn, the servo just goes back and forth. There's an electric motor in there that goes back and forth that will turn the wheels. Now obviously right now the car is off. We'll turn it on in a little bit, but you can see the servo does move back and forth, and this little arm here can send power to your steering linkages, which steers the wheels. Now, moving along, we have our servo here. This is our ESC, or electronic speed control. And this sends power to your motor, which is right here. So your electric motor is right here, and it receives power from the ESC, and it just has 3 wires right here that go from the ESC over to your motor. And these plugs will actually unplug, which is nice if you need to like switch out your motor. You just, when you're running these, you have to watch out because they will become unplugged, or where they're half plugged in, and that will cause a fire. If it just sits there like that, if you hit too many bumps, it'll sit there like that and get really hot, and then that could cause a fire, and that would be a problem. Now your ESC also has this fan right here, and this fan takes air and sucks air through the ESC to cool it. And the reason that is important is because heat is the biggest enemy of all electronics, and if your electronics overheat, then they will catch on fire. And so if you haven't noticed the theme here already, in RC cars, heat dissipation is very important because you want to keep your electronics cool and you want to keep everything working smoothly. So let's power on our RC vehicle. So first, we will turn on our transmitter, which is a Futaba 4PM. So we always turn on our transmitter first, and then we turn on our vehicle. We do that by hitting the power button, which is located on the ESC right here. Now that the vehicle's on, you can see when I turn the wheel, it turns the servo, and everything is working as it should. Now to turn the vehicle off, we do everything in the exact opposite order of how we turned it on. So first, we hit the power button on our ESC. That will power off our vehicle, and then we hit the power button on our transmitter. And that will power off our transmitter. And then it's important to remember to unplug the battery from your car. The reason this is important is because you do not want to risk a fire on your RC car when you are storing it. So guys, always be sure to unplug your vehicle when you are done using it. As always, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and be on the lookout for more videos.